I love that you mentioned this because I think so often, we feel that discomfort and really it's just a reminder to if we just lean into it, it just gets better. You're a passionate creative, and so are we. Join me, Brie Stockwell, and my podcast partner, Len Metcalf, as we navigate the ups and downs of living creative lives while teaching you how to do it too. Time to pull back the curtain on our creative affair.
Hello, welcome to A Creative Affair. I'm Len Metcalf, and you're here today with Brie Stockwell, and this is a beautiful creative life. And Brie, how are you today?
I'm awesome. I thought for a minute you didn't remember my name because it's been so long since we recorded.
Well, I struggle with people's names, and it's really, really embarrassing that I don't remember names. And it was a product that I developed from when I was working with thousands of people. You just couldn't possibly remember names, so you let that part go quite easily. But now I just blame a misspent youth and a bad memory on remembering people's names.
I don't remember people's names either. And I don't have a misspent. I must have a terrible memory, but I need to say people's names like a bunch of times and see their faces before I can remember. So now I just know that it's funny because now I just kind of know that this is a struggle for me. And I'll look at someone and say, I'm so sorry. Will you remind me of your name again? And it might be a little bit awkward for a minute, but it's all gets cleared up. And they're like, oh, no, I have the same problem. And I'm like, great.
That's right. We all have it, and it's okay. And people love introducing themselves again. It is a beautiful thing. I hear, Brie, you've been doing some Instagram posts, and you've been having some interesting conversations and comments on there. Do you want to tell us?
So, Len, when this is for our audience, when Len and I are talking about what we're going to talk about, we almost always have a handful of different topics that we want to pull out at any time. And then we give ourselves permission to just talk about the one that rises to the surface, So, so today I actually just posted, I was telling Len you saw my post. I posted a reel of myself where I share pictures of myself in ninth grade. And I'm so glad I kept that photo because I look so awkward. I have all the things. I have a really bad grown out perm that looks like it's bad. And I have braces and I have glasses. And then my clothes are I don't know, it's just a t-shirt, but over it I know exactly what this dress is. It's a tank dress. And I sewed it because I was into sewing at the time. And it was one of those drop waist dresses. And it was long. I'm positive I was wearing Birkenstocks with it.
And socks, maybe.
No, Len. I'm going to post a photo of me. This is my face. Never socks with Birkenstocks. Never socks with Birkenstocks. Never. But if you want to wear socks with yours, that's okay. But I grew up in California, so we didn't need socks with our Birks. So,
We have, I've just bought a pair. We have these things called Ugg boots, and they're made of sheepskin. And I just bought a new pair because my old pair wore out. And in winter, they're a must around the house to keep your little toesies snugly warm against beautiful wool.
That's so funny. I had Birkenstocks, and I actually never wore a pair of Ugg boots, but where I grew up in California, you knew it was cold if you had to put on your hoodie with your shorts and wear and lots of people wore Ugg boots. So you have shorts and Ugg boots and a hoodie, and then and that's if the grass is like barely frosty. That's how you go to school. But anyway, I digress.
We did there.
So I posted a little reel where I shared a photo of me in ninth grade, and then I share a photo of me in 12th grade. And I've shared these two with people, like, this is me in ninth grade. And people go like this because they know me now. And so they literally go, like, oh my goodness, is that you? Clutch their pearls. And then I show a picture of me in 12th grade and they're like, oh yeah, that's the Brie we know, right? And so I definitely went through this awkward phase. And then I transition into a photo of me now that I just had made, which I feel really great about. So I'll tell you, if you want to go look, it is today June 4th? I know it's your June 5th, Lynn. Wait, hang on. Okay.
Yes,
it's my reel on my coaching Instagram from June 4th, if you want to go check it out. So, but I talk about being awkward and embracing the awkwardness and how sometimes like at the beginning we feel like there's some awkwardness as we're experimenting and figuring ourselves out. And then what's funny is that kind of feels weird at first, like kind of bad. Like I don't like feeling like this. But then as you grow, I really think that you can embrace this awkwardness. So why I'm talking about this is because I want to talk about creative growth. But here's what a couple people said on my post. They said, I'm finally embracing my weirdness. And this person is like in her 60s. I think that's awesome, right? And then someone else, she's younger than me, she says, thanks for sharing these thoughts because I have been feeling awkward lately too in new things I'm trying. Thanks for acknowledging it's part of the process. And yeah, I posted that. This wasn't to like brag or toot my own horn, but it was to acknowledge that sometimes being awkward is part of the growth process. And so I thought, wouldn't it be fun if we talk about creative growth and what that looks like for us and how you might recognize when you're growing creatively? And I don't know, I'm sure it will morph into all kinds of things, but I thought we could start by talking about awkwardness because sometimes we have that and it feels really strange when we do and we don't know what to do with it.
I'm fascinated to know what awkwardness is. So maybe let's sort of explore that as like because it's a feeling, isn't it? First off, we're talking about a feeling, but what is that feeling? Is it in your stomach? Do you feel it in your stomach, or is it floats in your head? Is it in your heart, or is it in your body?
I don't know. Hang on. Yeah, I think it's in my body more like an all over kind of. For me, it's like this unsettled. Yeah, you know when you just feel grounded?
Yeah, we love that one. We love the grounded feelings.
Right, exactly. Like I think of awkwardness being like unsettled and not really knowing where to put yourself or where to be. So no matter where I'm at, I don't feel grounded or there's nothing to hold on to. And so maybe it's kind of a lighter feeling and not in like a happy lighter. It's like a lighter floaty feeling that you just kind of feel like the wind is blowing you because you don't know where you're going to be next, you know?
That's fascinating because you've said that twice now. You said it before we started recording and you've just said it again. Not knowing what is going to happen next is what you said. So for you, awkwardness is associated with not knowing what's going to happen next.
Or not knowing why I'm doing certain things. Because if I have to relate it to my creativity, there are some things that I create, so I just went to White Sands in April again.
We hear every time Brie goes to White Sands, we're all going to hear about it. So just everyone remember that. Do you know why? Because it's her favorite place. So that's right. I'm so sorry. I mean, I'm sorry, not sorry. But I made these photos. In fact, I photographed this one clump of yuccas. I just felt compelled to. And I was like,
I looked on my camera. I'm like, why am I drawn to these things? I have no idea. Like literally no idea.
I have no idea what a yucca is. So you might have to tell me what a yucca is.
So a yucca is it's a little succulent that grows in the desert, and it has usually like one single stalk, and then, or maybe even like a couple of stalks if it's older. And it has kind of like spiky leaves or something. I don't know if they're called leaves. So, see?
Oh, they're beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. And they make the most beautiful shadows because the leaves are so spiky, but the white sands is just covered with them. And the thing is that when I was there last, I made a photo of this one group of them because I'm kind of fascinated by groupings of them. I like to consider them like little families. And I'm like, what am I doing? It doesn't even necessarily feel like a compelling photograph for me. And so I'm actually still trying to figure this out. I look at the photo and it feels kind of awkward. Do you see that, Len? Sorry, I'll do a blog post of this one and put the photos.
Well, I'm going to tell you that just to give it time, like that feeling with it will change over a period of time. It will settle, the meaning will come. I was having a conversation about this last night, actually. Our subconscious is so powerful. And we don't understand, our consciousness doesn't, we're on different wavelengths, the two parts. And it's because we're so far apart in years and time. Anyway, time will help heal it. Heal's the wrong word, help bring the two together and explain the meaning to you.
I've had that happen, and I can't recall a time, and I'm sure you've had this happen too. But the thing is like when I'm making stuff like this, and here's another version of the same one, but it's like that group with a little audience. But so I'll post the blog post and I'll show you these things, and I'll show you kind of the sequence that I did them. But I still am puzzling it out. And the thing is sometimes, like, I think in my growth, I'm learning more of how to photograph something that I think is maybe a little weird, but I'm drawn to it. And this, by photograph, I mean, you could be creating anything, right? Like anything that you don't know, that you feel compelled to create, but you don't quite know what to do with. And then it's kind of sitting with this unsettled feeling that you don't understand it quite yet. And to me, that's where I feel a little awkward, because there's that disconnect between what my intuition tells me to create and what I understand about it. And I like it. And I kind of am using this as a way to go, okay, I think that there's growth here, because maybe this is the direction that I want to take my creative work. I kind of let my intuition guide me like that. But also I'm not quite sure yet. So there is a lot of unknown when I make these things. And they're all digital images. There's no risk involved in doing these things. So I have settled with that there's no risk. Because I used to think that I'm like, oh my gosh, if I make a photo of that, I know I'm doing a lot of talking. If I make a photo of that, then I might miss out on another opportunity. So why would I spend my time making a photo of something that feels really weird and I don't know what to do with yet, when I could be doing something that feels more safe,
We should do an episode on the fear of missing out.
On FOMO? Yeah. Write that down.
Yeah, that we need to put that in our things. But one of the things that you also said is you had a bit of a metaphor in there of a little clump of them and having an audience. And those little plays that we do with ourselves are important.
Hi, Momo.
No, stop it.
Momo is a tiny dog, but he wants to be heard.
That's right. He's got small dog syndrome.
Yes, he does.
The really interesting thing there is your language and the description of the metaphor of this clump of them and then them having an audience, and you were actually in your mind you were creating this audience and this perhaps a performance, perhaps a musical performance, perhaps an artistic performance, perhaps a podcast and an audience.
I'll tell you what came to mind when I photographed. So the photograph is a big yucca in the middle and then other yuccas around in various states of like unrest. So some are kind of wilted over and, the one in the middle is the biggest one. And I thought, are they having a seance? Is there some sort of like witchcraft going on here or, some dancing in this magical place, the dance of the yuccas or something. I don't know. But maybe partly there is this metaphor, and I don't want to read too much into it because I really still don't know. But there's this metaphor of like these other yuccas watching this something going on, and maybe they're trying to figure it out too. And, because I wouldn't be ready to put necessarily that out to the world as like a piece of art that I've created. Right now, it's just something that I've made, that I've observed, and so I photographed it. But yeah, I wouldn't want to say anything big art, like art with a capital A about it until I figured it out, I think, I don't know. There's a lot of like uncertainty with that.
There's a lot going on there today. Art with a big capital A. We could talk about that as well. And we could also talk about why when you take the photo of it, it's not art, because we could challenge you on that. I think everything that you make is art. But I like that idea that you consider what you're going to put out into the world and it gets elevated. I'd love to circle back around to awkwardness because that's what we're playing here. And I was sort of thinking that awkwardness for me is often a physical thing. And I feel very awkward in my body. I have incredibly long legs and getting them around the place is hard work. Like, it has its advantages. I can reach the top shelf, but they get tangled up and I fall over a lot because they're a little bit out of control because of their length. And they often have me in this state of feeling very, very awkward. So when I hear the word awkward, I really think about my body as being awkward. And then I've been thinking about what you were saying and this, trying to relate it to my body and bring them into something that I can frame up for myself, is that an awkwardness is when I don't feel in tune with my body. And it feels like there's a slight disconnect or even a big disconnect. So it's not worrying about the future or the past. It's this moment of strangeness, of unknowingness or not knowing or unknown or
not understanding the present.
Not understanding what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I've as we've been talking about this and we talked about it beforehand, I just kept thinking that this is a really natural process in making art because we want to get to this awkward spot regularly.
Unfortunately, or sometimes not, but...
Well, we know because we want to keep pushing ourselves outside of our little self-defined box of who we are. We want to keep pushing to be better and better. It's a really good thing to feel awkward. And if we can reframe that and celebrate it as a process in learning and exploring and creating, there's an immense power in learning to enjoy not knowing.
I agree. Because before, maybe a couple of years ago, I would not have talked about these photographs. Like, you would not hear about them because I would feel so uncomfortable about them because I was still so unsure about what I was even doing, And so for me, it's been a good reminder to go, oh, it feels strange. I feel a little disconnected. I don't understand it yet. And yet it's still part of the process to creating, and I think that's really huge. I do this a lot in my own, like with clients and my own personal work, especially in my own personal work. I use uncomfortable emotions as a kind of a trigger, not a bad trigger, but like a good trigger, a trigger to, what's the word I'm looking for? To enact? No, what's the word? Anyway, I use these as a trigger that starts a protocol that helps me actually move forward. Because in this, I haven't actually done one for feeling like this. Len just picked up Momo. He's so cute. He's so cute. So in this space, I'm like, okay, like this is what it would look like for me. If I'm feeling awkward, I'm like, oh, I start to feel really uncomfortable. And then I'm like, wait a minute. That uncomfortable feeling is actually, I want to trigger now my questions about, do I think this is growth? Like, why do I feel so uncomfortable? Is it because I feel awkward? Do I feel disconnected? Do I feel like there's something I don't quite understand? And could it possibly be that those are all great, that's like part of the experience that I'm supposed to have? So this awkwardness now basically reminds me that this is an experience that I want to be having because I want to be growing. I don't think anybody grows, like we don't grow as artists if we're just kind of doing the same old stuff, do we? I mean, maybe some people are satisfied with that.
Depends why we're doing it, doesn't it? Like we can do art, we can make art to self-soothe and not push ourselves. We don't have to be pushing ourselves to be unique and different and making absolutely incredible art. There's thousands of examples of people that make things for just the pure enjoyment of making, and they don't have to go out on a limb to do that. But there's a whole another bunch of artists that really love pushing themselves, and that's part of the game. The enjoyment is trying to do something that's different and unique and beyond what they've done in the past. And they love this continual growth, lifelong learning, pushing themselves. So I think both have their place.
Yeah.
And they both are very important, and we shouldn't undervalue one when we push the other in this discussion, because if you are really just happy writing, for example, and no one ever reads them, and you write for yourself and there's no audience and you just keep doing it and there's no awkwardness, or perhaps it's couched in awkwardness all the time, and you just enjoy it, that's absolutely fine. And you shouldn't stop, and you should be encouraged and supported in doing that, because as we know, and we've talked about, creativity is an inherently human thing.
Yeah, and so personal too.
Yeah, don't anyone tell you what you should and shouldn't do.
Agreed. And I wonder too if you're creating art to self-soothe, I wonder if there's some, I'm going to switch the word awkwardness to discomfort here, but I wonder if there's some discomfort there that is involved, but it's not on the art side because you're already comfortable with that part. And so there's discomfort in maybe your emotions or how you're feeling in your own body or whatever. So the art actually helps you understand the discomfort and helps you move through it, maybe even a little easier, right? So there's so many different reasons why we do it. And I totally agree with you.
Art teaches us who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes an educational thing, isn't it? It has this incredible power to educate us. And I love the word uncomfortable, and I actually prefer it to awkwardness. for the reasons that I spoke about, because I have awkwardness associated with my physical body. But we feel feelings in our whole body anyway. And it's interesting to identify these tiny little differences because once you identify them, you can then rationalize them and then use them and learn to go with them. And that this discomfort is incredibly powerful as an art maker, as a creative. Like we go in and out of it all the time. Almost every time we make a photograph, or we do an artwork, or we take a pen to paper and we're worried about where to start or what it's going to look like. We go into these awkward moments, this discomfort, and we have to become adept and practice at moving through them, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Not getting stuck in them.
Yeah, I think that's where so many of us, and maybe myself, maybe I say so many of us, and that means me just staying. Because I used to feel, well, let me finish what I was saying. I think so many of us feel like discomfort or feeling uncomfortable is a bad thing. Most of us live in comfortable surroundings. You know, a lot of us have lived in comfort. And sometimes I think it can be difficult to understand that experiencing discomfort is a great thing. Len, I was telling you how, and I'm training myself to do more push-ups, and I'm doing a lot of like body resistance, and it's not comfortable. And right now my shoulders are sore. So, and I'm experiencing some discomfort, but I also know that's worth it, right? It's worth it to come out on the other end feeling stronger, changing my body in a way that I want to, like on purpose. I think the thing is, like with art, we can maybe there's a couple different parts to this discomfort. One is doing it on purpose, because I feel a little awkward and uncomfortable if I'm trying something new. So I'm doing that on purpose, right? Like we've talked about experimenting. Sometimes it's really fun, but sometimes it feels kind of strange, because it's not something that you're used to doing. And then there's this other part where your creative intuition is guiding you to do things that you're not sure of what they are yet. So, and that's to me where I'm like, oh, what do I want to do with that? And I always forget that it's part of the process, that it's part of this, like, oh, I'm growing somehow, and I wonder what that will be. And I don't have to know what it will be. I just can wonder what it will be. I don't have to put that pressure on myself to know absolutely right now what they're not even crazy, what these photographs mean. I don't have to know right now what they mean at all.
Very much so. We feel awkward and uncomfortable when we're learning because we're readjusting our neural pathways. And so when I talked about it physically, so if you're learning to do a physical thing, you have to, and exercise is one of those, you actually have to retrain those neural pathways. And the muscular ones, like there's a whole lot of stuff going on there. And for visual ones as making art, it's the same process, isn't it? We actually have to rewire how we're thinking about it and its meaning and our understanding, and get used to these new artworks and these new pathways.
Have you experienced this before?
I feel awkward all the time.
I mean, like, I'm totally putting you on the spot. Can you think of a time that you were creating things you didn't quite know what to do with, or you were experiencing growth and it felt really uncomfortable?
I don't like my work when I make it. And the ones that I really love when I make them, and I get so high off the excitement for making them, inevitably they're pretty crap artworks. It's quite fascinating how this works. That my emotions and feelings at the stage of making don't match the actual artwork in the long run, and there's a huge disconnect there. So being comfortable just making stuff has been a lifelong journey, and I don't know that I'm there. And maybe like everything else, there's no end of the journey. It's a continual, always trying to fiddle with it and play with that process. But it's not unusual for me to go away for a week and photograph and at the end think I've got nothing, like after a whole week. But when I actually look, there's a few, and then I come back a few months later, there's more, and then I come back a year later and there's like, oh my God, these are beautiful. Why did I disregard them so strongly when I made them? And maybe it is to do with that discomfort. But I do also know that there's a disconnect between what I see, what I experience and feel inside me, and what I'm trying to make with my imagination. So there's all of that going on. And then there's the artwork, which is totally different. And it's based off all of that, but it's not the same thing. It doesn't necessarily take me to that same set of emotions. I'm trying to make it to give me those feelings, but it's not. It's a different whole object thing that is different. And trying to bring those two together is a lifelong journey. And the days that I give up worrying about that, I tend to make better art when I just do. And I try not to, I tend to feel the work rather than be too conscious about it. It's uncomfortable.
For sure. I was just thinking sometimes when I make something that photograph something that feels really uncomfortable, I feel really compelled to fix it. And so I'll go and just make a pretty picture. And I think that that's okay. I think that's okay to go, ooh, that was I don't quite know yet what that was about. So I'm just going to make something that feels that feels normal for me, that feels easy, to just kind of take the edge off. It sounds like a drug. It sounds like I'm doing drugs. A little dopamine hit never hurt anybody.
I think you're talking about a process that many of us use, and that is that we go to our safe space, and then we can pull back from our safe space and go into the awkwardness and to the unknown and the experimental. And if it gets too much, we go back to the safe space again. And it's like risk taking, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I often start with my phone, taking a few snaps with my phone. And because it's my phone, I give myself permission that it's not important, that it's not real, it's not going to mean anything. I can just play. And in that process, I make really beautiful things. But eventually...
Yeah, I know you do.
I've been selling my phone snaps.
Look what I made on my phone. I'm like, what? Stop it.
But what happens is I get so obsessed that I have to go and get the camera. It builds up into me that then it has to become something else, an otherness. And then I'm off working with my camera and I disappear into it at that point. But then I'll lose it again. And I'm like, oh, there's nothing here. The light's shit. It's there's footprints all through here. There's weeds. I don't want to be photographing weeds. What am I doing? The light's disgusting. And I switch off again, and then I have to find that headspace or that next little thing that's going to interest me and to play with.
I'm so curious. I'm so curious about what is the thing that switches, because I was like, what is the difference between feeling the discomfort and moving forward, and then there's definitely space to totally enjoy that process, to be like, I don't know. Because I remember feeling that too. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is so interesting. I'm totally going to do it. Like, it was fun in the moment. And then afterwards, I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? I don't understand. I'm questioning things. So I'm wondering, like, these times where, like when you pull back or I'm questioning, I wonder if there's a little of like, I wonder, like for me, there was a little bit of, I can't share this yet because I don't know what people are going to say. People are going to say I'm weird. I think there is, like, as much as I think that I don't necessarily care what other people think, I think there is, I think that still lingers for me. And sometimes I want it to, but like, people are going to think this is weird. I don't think they're going to understand it. And truthfully, maybe I don't want to put it out until I understand it and feel more confident about it.
Yeah. Well, you have a choice there, and that's up to you to fiddle with and play with. But our audience, or the people that are liking our work and seeing it, are maybe not the best judges for deciding whether it's important for you or not.
Right.
You're the best judge for that, aren't you? We should be comfortable and excited about our own work and not worry about what anyone else thinks about it.
Well, the interesting thing, and you brought this up before, I'm sorry, you guys, we talk about all kinds of things that we talk about before we start the episode. But it's interesting because I think when I'm ready and confident about it, other people will feel the same way too. Like, and I won't necessarily care, but it will be, other people will be drawn to it for the reasons that I am, even if it's the same thing as when I made it and I felt weird about it. It's just a shift in my energy around, surrounding it, which is so interesting.
So you're basically coming to the conclusion that it's got an aesthetic beauty that you're willing to share.
Yeah, or there's some sort of story behind it that I want to talk about. Something. Like there's something about it that I want to share with the world.
That's really interesting. So there's two there, isn't there? We can share, and we choose that art is finished and beautiful because it's aesthetically pleasing.
Pretty.
And then we also share artwork as a means of communication and starting stories or telling stories. And it doesn't have to necessarily be aesthetically pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to think about that now. That'll take me a few weeks to get my head around that. But
I just had a whole conversation with some other photographers, like on a forum about this exact thing. Yeah, and it is interesting. Like, how often do we tell stories with our work? I mean, if you're a writer, then you literally are telling stories. But if you're a visual artist, like, do you want to tell a story? Are you even telling a story? And but I think that might be something to explore. I think that's something to definitely explore in another episode. You know what I mean?
I've just returned to writing, Brie. I've been writing my articles and intros to books and Lens Journal and those sort of things, but I got out of the habit of writing my own newsletter and allowing my assistant to do it and to do marketing things. And I got out of the habit of writing every day or regularly. And that writing has always been around sharing stories about my work and writing about my work and talking about it. And I had this huge block, and it went on for years. Not like I knew I shouldn't be doing that, and that I wanted to stop doing that, and I needed to get back into it. And it, like all blocks, the longer you leave it, the bigger the wall gets. It just
100%.
keeps tending to grow and grow and grow. And then one day I just started without thinking about what it was going to be that I was going to write about. And I just went back to choosing an artwork and just starting about it. And suddenly, as soon as I start, I realized how easy it was. And I'm actually doing that very thing where I'm using my work to tell stories. And it's not about the quality of the photo. It's about the story that I want to share. And it's funny because the photo triggers the story, not the story triggers the photo. So I actually start by looking for something. Then I find something, and then a story emerges, and then I write about it and talk about it. And I get really excited about that as the medium. Actually, I really love that storytelling and pushing the work out. So you should all be subscribed to my newsletter.
Subtle plug there, Len.
Yes, a little plug there. But no, in all seriousness, that's one of the mediums where I actually really express the most.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling honest stories about the work, and I'm sharing not a curated visual beauty that I would do to Instagram or something like that. This is the real personal work. And I'm not seeking likes or any recognition for it. It's this total, because most of them just go out into the world and you never hear from them again. And it's this incredibly beautiful personal experience. And it's blogging, or whatever you'd like to call it. But that medium works exceptionally well for me.
I love that you mentioned this because I think so often, we feel that discomfort, and really it's just a reminder to if we just lean into it, it just gets better. And we kind of grow comfortable with that feeling, that uncomfortable, that little bit of a little bit, a lot. Maybe it's for you, it's a little bit, because it's a reminder. So next time you do one, you'll be like, oh yeah. And I do this too. Yeah, oh yeah. I know what's going to happen. My calendar's going to come up. It's going to tell me to do this thing, or you sit down to make art, or whatever it is that you're going to sit, that you're going to start. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. And then guess what? After a few minutes, it's not. Because you're just going to start doing it. You're going to gather up some courage to allow yourself to feel uncomfortable for a little bit. And it's going to be fine, And it always is, right?
We did a whole episode on Just Start, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. That's fun. I think about that often. I think we made that for us, for me. Because I'm like, oh, just get started, Brie. Just start. Come on.
We make everything for ourselves.
Yeah.
And Brie and I were talking about this too, about this audience thing. So we'll come back to that again, I think.
Yeah, we for sure will. Well, I think for this episode, I just think it's really important to remember that when we're in this when we're in this place where we feel a little disconnected, or you feel uncomfortable, or you feel awkward, or you're putting out stuff where you're like, that's weird. I don't know why I did that. That maybe you're just in a place of growth. And that's totally part of what you're supposed to be, like what's supposed to be happening. Like it's all supposed to be happening just like it is. And I think that's a really fun place to be, because art is not linear. We're always going to be kind of going up and down. And sometimes we'll get really comfortable and it'll feel amazing. We'll put out lots of stuff that we feel great about. And then we'll get in this place where we feel uncomfortable and it kind of, moves up and down again. In fact, we have one of the topics is like waves of creativity. Because we're not, I just remember that. It's just not a straight line. This kind of work is not a straight line. It is an up and a down. And sometimes when we feel down, it's actually an up. It's actually because you're on your way up. And for me, that's really fun to think about.
I would suggest to people that you make up a little mantra for this. I have my own. Mine is trust the process. I got that from Fred Hulls, actually, when I was 18. God, that's 40 years ago. Anyway, I've been using that mantra for so many things where I know deep down that it's okay to keep going, and that the uncomfort, the awkwardness, the fear, the dead moments, these waves that come and go, and when you're working as a teacher, there's lots of moments of fear. Do they understand what's going to happen? Is it going to work? Is this going to happen? And I just say that little mantra, Len, trust the process. It's all right to be in this space right now because it's not forever. It's one of these waves. It's one of these moments. And we don't need to understand why. We can just let it happen and work and stop and feel it and just keep working through it, and it'll change again and move on. So do you have any little mantras like that? That's my little one that gets me through this particular moment.
Well, I love creating these beliefs, mantras, sort of a belief that we have that we want to remind ourselves of. And I was thinking about one I created with a client, and I love this one because this one for this client has actually been over and over resurfaced, and I feel like it's been so helpful to have that identified. And it's this: in the unknown, everything turns out great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we're feeling uncomfortable, it's because sometimes we don't know what the future is going to look like how is it going to turn out? And if we remind ourselves that so often when we're in this place, things turn out great, and we actually create that it turns out great when we believe this, then I just think this is such a great thing to tap into, when we're feeling that way. In the unknown, everything turns out great. So you can walk into, are you writing this down or something?
I am writing it down.
I see him looking down. So we can we can kind of like step into the fog and not be able to see what's completely in front of us. We just see a little bit at a time. And I really think that's a lot of what, this creative work is just seeing a little bit right in front of us and going anyway. And so they're both the same thing. Like this, in the unknown, everything turns out great, and trust the process. They're really close together. But I think the point is you figure out what resonates for you. Maybe try one of these if you're feeling like you're in that space, It could be even, I'm willing to feel discomfort. I'm great at feeling it. And I do it anyway. So, there's lots to choose from.
It's important to find ones that are meaningful to you and hang on to them. And some of mine actually associated with certain people, and that actually helps me give extra value to them. And I collect mantras as well and affirmations, and rereading them regularly and seeing them over and over and actually having them there is incredibly powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I've taught, I've done this 3-4 week workshop on my sticky note method. And so, but my clients all know, I put stuff on sticky notes, and it's such a great way. Use a little sticky note, such a great way to remind yourself. Here's what I'm going to just tell you. If you say it over and over again, and I think you have to actually say it a lot, so that when this stuff starts happening, it's automatic for you. So you can say these when you're in that space, but if that's the only time you say it, it's not going to be super automatic. You just want to have that belief, that mantra just live through you. And I love that.
I've been studying how to change just this year. And I was quite consciously thinking about things like that. And the advice is to rehearse them, isn't it? To rehearse your reactions and your feelings in advance. So by saying it over and over, you're actually rehearsing that feeling into your body, and you're hardwiring it in there, aren't you? So that when you're in that situation, eventually you can be different when it happens to you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that it's just such a conscious thing. So you're not surprised by it. You're consciously making an effort to decide what you want to think in those situations. And here's the great thing. And I feel like we're talking about it long enough, but here's a great thing about this is that when you get comfortable, when you can say these mantras, or not just comfortable, but when you can understand that feeling this discomfort, feeling awkwardness, feeling like you're making something weird, all of that is it's part of it and you're okay with it, then you actually just keep making art. And it doesn't stop you. That feeling doesn't stop you from the growth that you're about to have. And I think that's the best news of this whole conversation right now, is that you don't stop. You keep going. And that's always fun, because we like, come on. This is our affair. Like, we're passionate about it. We want to keep doing it. We don't want to be stopped by feeling terrible. So yeah, keep going.
One of my students has their little mantra typed out on a Gestetner machine, those little plastic strips of a sticker stuck on the back of their camera.
Nice.
So, yeah, you could put it anywhere.
Yeah. You can
Absolutely anywhere.
Tons of sticky notes and put them everywhere. You can totally do that. All right, Lynn, that
Brie,
was fun.
I think that's the end. We both decided it's the end simultaneously there. That's a good sign.
Yeah, jinx.
It's not
it
a
totally
jinx.
is.
It's magic.
That's right. Totally is. All right, everyone. Well, thanks, Lynn. That was really fun. Thanks for talking me through some of that.
I learnt so much too. It was a good conversation, and I so enjoyed it, as always. And until next time, folks, we'll say goodbye.
Bye, y'all. Well, wasn't that fun? As we close another episode of A Creative Affair, would you click on your podcast player and leave us a 5-star review and share with another passionate creative like yourself? Thanks. To find out more about our creative work and mentoring, visit Len at lenschool.com or me, Brie, at creativemindscoach.com.